Imagine this. You finally meet someone. You are no longer alone. Someone waits for your messages, cares about your emotions, makes you feel needed. Your life suddenly seems to have a center, a direction, a meaning. You start to believe this is love. You convince yourself this is the healthiest, most legitimate, most socially approved form of attachment. But what if I told you, intimate relationships are the easiest addiction trap for ordinary people? Not alcohol. Not drugs. Not gambling. But the feeling of being understood, depended on, emotionally confirmed. Have you noticed this? Your strongest emotional swings almost always come from one person. Your deepest joy, sharpest pain, most uncontrollable anxiety, all tied to a relationship. You say you are in love. But are you sure you are not anesthetizing yourself through intimacy? Think carefully. Why do you feel less like yourself the closer you get to someone? Why does emotional closeness often bring a deeper sense of emptiness? Why does the thought of losing them trigger fear, panic, even withdrawal-like symptoms? If intimacy were truly about freedom, why does it so often create dependency, control, self-erasure, and sacrifice? You might object, humans are social beings. Intimate relationships are a natural need. Pause for a moment. Addiction is not the same as abnormality. The most dangerous addictions are those society encourages, romanticizes, and labels as normal. Intimate relationships are the easiest addiction trap for ordinary people precisely because they look so right. You do not have to hide. You do not have to deny it. You may even be praised, you're devoted. You love deeply. You're willing to sacrifice. But has anyone asked you this? Are you giving love, or feeding fear? Are you attached to another person, or running from your own loneliness? What you cannot let go of, is it the relationship, or the fragile self that exists only inside it? And here is the most painful question of all, if this relationship disappeared tomorrow, what would remain of you? Your identity. Your sense of worth. Your right to exist, have they quietly been tied to another human being? This is the cruel genius of addiction. It does not destroy you. It slowly replaces you. It does not hurt you. It makes you unable to leave. So the real question is not, do I love this person? The real question is, without this intimate relationship, can you still stand on your own? That is the abyss we must now face. If you look honestly at your life, you will see a brutal truth: you did not, suddenly, lose yourself in intimate relationships. You were trained, step by step, to exist only through them. Carl Jung once said that what humans fear most is not darkness, but confronting their own emptiness. And intimate relationships offer ordinary people the gentlest, and most dangerous, escape from that confrontation. Because when you bind yourself tightly to another person, you no longer have to face the question, if no one needs me, who am I? This is the psychological core of why intimate relationships are the easiest addiction trap for ordinary people. They do not merely meet emotional needs, they temporarily carry the weight of the self for you. In psychology, this is called outsourcing the self. You outsource safety to another person. You outsource worth to a relationship. You outsource existence to being loved. As long as the relationship exists, you exist. As long as they stay, you feel real. But this also means, when the relationship shakes, your entire inner structure collapses. Nietzsche saw this clearly. He warned that humanity's greatest danger is not suffering, but addiction to comfort. Because comfort stops you from becoming who you are. Intimate relationships are the most socially accepted comfort system of modern life. They tell you, you don't have to be alone. You don't have to be fully conscious. You don't have to bear the weight of existence. As long as you love and are loved, you are enough. Schopenhauer would answer coldly, most relationships are not the meeting of two whole beings, but two lacking ones warming each other. Lack meets lack, and it looks like intimacy. In reality, it is closer to collusion. You use them to fill the void. They use you to escape nothingness. You need each other, but you do not truly see each other. And society rewards this structure. From childhood onward, you are taught an invisible hierarchy: solitude is suspicious. Being single is failure. Long-term attachment is maturity. Being needed equals worth. So when you pour your emotions, time, and meaning into a relationship, you are not warned, you are praised. That is why intimate relationships are the easiest addiction trap for ordinary people. An entire culture legitimizes the addiction. Jung would call this a conspiracy of the collective unconscious. You think you are choosing relationships. In reality, an ancient fear is choosing through you. That fear has only one name: the inability to bear oneself alone. You are not afraid of losing someone. You are afraid that without a relationship, you will have to face yourself, for the first time. And this is where the next part becomes darker. Because this avoidance does not stop with you. The most dangerous prison is never the one that causes pain. It is the one that makes you feel mostly fine, while quietly taking away your ownership of life. The true consequence of addiction to intimate relationships is not heartbreak. It is the gradual loss of your ability to be yourself. You begin to filter your real thoughts, not because you are lying, but because you have learned which parts of you are acceptable, which provoke conflict, and which threaten the stability of the bond. So you choose the safer version of yourself. You adjust emotional intensity. You suppress certain desires. You soften certain judgments. You become easier to love, and harder to leave. You call this maturity. Psychologically, it is chronic self-compression. Jung would say, you did not eliminate the shadow, you buried it deeper. And the shadow never disappears, it only waits to return in more extreme forms. That is why many people do not collapse when relationships end, but when they appear most stable. Because when you use a relationship to sustain the self, your inner structure becomes thinner and thinner. You no longer know whether your feelings are real without feedback, whether you have value without being needed, whether you exist without us. This silently shapes every decision. You avoid risk, because risk threatens attachment. You avoid transformation, because growth makes you less controllable. You avoid becoming more, because becoming more might make you incompatible with the relationship. Slowly, the relationship begins to define your future. You think you are compromising for love. In truth, you are surrendering tomorrow to avoid losing attachment. From a societal perspective, this structure is highly efficient. A person addicted to intimacy is stable, predictable, and easier to persuade to choose safety over disruption. They pick secure jobs. They postpone self-exploration. They accept lives that are tolerable rather than true. This is not a conspiracy. It is a systemic preference. Someone who places meaning entirely in relationships rarely questions larger structures, because their emotional energy is already exhausted. Society gains compliant individuals. And you gain a slow inner drought. You feel tired without knowing why. Empty despite having everything. You blame age, stress, circumstance. But the truth is simple, you have not existed as a whole individual for a long time. Intimate relationships should be meetings of two whole beings. But when they become the scaffold of your existence, they cease to be love, and become a gentle structure of control. And the cruelest part is this: if you never see it, you will accept this emptiness as normal life. True awakening often begins with a dangerous thought: what happens if I stop using intimate relationships as emotional scaffolding? This question is frightening not because it lacks answers, but because it destabilizes the structure you live on. You are not afraid of loneliness itself. You are afraid of a state where no relationship defines your meaning. Rebellion starts here. The first step is never leaving someone, it is withdrawing your psychological projection from the relationship. What you depend on is not the person, but the role they play inside you, the validator, the witness, the stabilizer, the proof of existence. Once you see this, you realize you are not afraid of losing love, but of losing certainty about who you are. Nietzsche would say, you have transferred the burden of existence onto another human being. Anyone forced to carry your meaning eventually becomes a burden, or a cage. The second step is relearning how to endure emptiness. Not filling it, not escaping it. Allowing a temporary absence of meaning. You practice staying with yourself without immediate feedback, without emotional confirmation, without being needed. This is radically counterintuitive. Society teaches that emptiness is failure, loneliness is a flaw, and being unloved means being unchosen. Philosophy says the opposite. Sartre believed that humans do not act from meaning, they endure nothingness first, and meaning emerges through responsibility. You do not prove existence by being loved. You earn the capacity to love by bearing existence alone. The third step is returning intimacy from a painkiller to a meeting. You stop expecting relationships to heal childhood wounds, repair self-worth, or shield you from uncertainty. You ask a harder question: if this relationship does not make me feel safe, would I still choose it? This question dissolves many attachments disguised as intimacy. Real intimacy is not mutual rescue. It is two grounded individuals choosing to walk together. Those who truly understood life could endure long periods of inner solitude. Nietzsche's isolation, Marcus Aurelius' inner citadel, Jung's later retreat, they did not reject relationships, they rejected replacing the self with them. When you stop anesthetizing anxiety through attachment, anxiety becomes visible, understandable, workable. And this is where freedom begins. Because you no longer need to hold on to someone to prove you deserve to exist. Now you can finally face the question you've been avoiding: why are intimate relationships the easiest addiction trap for ordinary people? The answer isn't romantic. It's unsettling. For most people, intimacy is not love, it is a substitute for existential anxiety. You think you are searching for a soulmate, but what you are really seeking is a place to hide from emptiness, fear, and uncertainty. You didn't fall in love with a person. You fell in love with the feeling of being needed, validated, rescued. The moment you hand over the question, "Do I deserve to exist?" to another human being, you've entered an addictive structure. This is the ultimate truth: anything used to avoid self-responsibility will eventually become a cage. Intimate relationships are dangerous not because they are false, but because they so easily become containers for the emptiness you refuse to face. Jung warned, what you deny in yourself returns as fate. You avoid loneliness, and it turns into dependency. You avoid responsibility, and it becomes resentment and control within relationships. Until one day, you realize, you no longer remember who you are when no one is there. An awakening happens right here. A mature intimate relationship does not make you whole. It happens because you are already whole and still choose closeness. You no longer need love to prove worth, attachment to fight emptiness, or self-betrayal to avoid solitude. You finally understand, loneliness is not the problem. Avoiding it is. When you can bear existence alone, intimacy transforms, from addiction back into encounter. Love stops being grasping, and becomes choosing. Stops being survival, and becomes sharing. And this is the moment an ordinary person walks out of the addiction trap for good.